So hi everyone. So normally you also can see my screen. If you don't, just raise your hand or something like this. So yes, my name is Valentin Guerlesquin. It's not an easy one to pronounce. I just figured out some days ago that there is no sound in English with un, so no worries for that. I'm head of performance testing, test automation, and test data management here at National Bank of Canada. If I show you a little bit about me, it would be quite strange, but you can read this and see who I am. Obviously, so I'm living in Canada, in Montreal. I'm a ESTQB full advanced professional and things like this. I'm basically French, born and raised in France. Moved to Canada some years ago. And today, as many of you, as I'm from home, working from home. So say hi to my only colleague on my side, who is right here, and looking at you if you are good guys. Okay, what about what we do here at National Bank of Canada? So basically what I want to say thank you, Erica, a lot for your speech just before me. It would be quite hard to be following you, but I try to be as good as you today. I'm not sure I will, but let's try it. So what we do at National Bank of Canada, we moved since more than 3 years now from doing only manual testing, and today we are doing a lot of automated tests. So I don't say we have manual testers and automated testers. We have testers, and they have changed their way of doing. As you said, Erica, we are using test automation as a tool, and we today have a lot of more automated tests than before. Just to let you know, we started something like 3 years ago with less than 100 test execution, which was made with automated test script per month. So less than 100 test execution script per month, to today more than 160,000 per month. And I'm only talking about UI testing. So basically we have multiplied by more than 1,000 the amount of testing which is made automatically compared to manually, and this in less than 3 months. 3 years, sorry, 3 years. So we today are doing a lot of test automation, and yes, it is done by testers, obviously. So it is manual testers? No, it is testers only. So what I want to say about this, I'm a tester, and I will talk to you today about something very we hear a lot in the media, and you know what I'm talking about the pandemic, and I will talk to you about COVID-19 and what it has made understood, or it will reveal me from how we test and specific characteristic of testing. But just before saying that, if anyone from you are from Canada, or if you want to be part of it, I'd like you to consider giving this foundation, which is an hospital in Montreal, which deserves more than 1/3 of the population of Montreal. And if you have a look on what they are doing, they are helping this hospital to heal patients and things like this. Please have a look on this. It would be a pleasure for me to know that you gave them something because of me. I will be very proud of it. So let's go back to COVID testing. And if you had the chance to be tested for COVID, you might have what happening here to this person. So I had the chance to be tested for COVID, and unfortunately I was sick of COVID 2 months ago. It was very good for me, no problems, but I know how painful it is first to get that test and then to be sick. And if you haven't had this yet, one day maybe you will be tested for COVID, and you will have someone you don't know put in a Q-tips in your nose, in the back of your nose, and exactly when you think he cannot go further, this person you don't know will just show you he can go further, and then do the testing and get this to be tested to see if you are sick or not. So it's obviously something very strange, And really, before I get sick myself, some of my cousin was sick, and I asked him, have you get tested? He told me, no, I don't need to get tested. I think I am sick, but whatever, I don't trust the test. Oh, you don't trust the test? You know, I'm a tester, so I'm interested in that. I asked him why, and he told me, so we never know if it's working, because I've been told that some people have been tested and said you are negative, but they were sick. And I've been told some people have been tested and said you are positive, but they had no symptoms. So I don't trust the test. Okay. So basically, he had a clear opinion on the trust, the confidence he can have on testing, only because he heard about situations where people get the false results. And you probably know that. So, you know, it's testing, but, you know, COVID testing. And I thought, okay, how is it working? You know, COVID testing, and is there a link between this and what we are doing in software testing? This is what I will talk to you today. And I had a look on, okay, what is basically, how is built the test efficiency when we are testing COVID or any medical test, when we are doing any medical test. So basically, here's a population. We have a population. All of these will be tested by the same test. And as you can see, these guys are today pretty happy. We will test all of them. And basically, at the end, we will have some of them which are, we are pointing those individuals and saying, those individuals are sick. But if we have a more deeper look on them, we will see that the blue one are not sick. So what we do understand is the COVID testing, here in my example, include in his positive results someone which is not sick. And it exclude in his positive result 2 individuals who are sick. So this is basically the small case my cousin told me about, someone which has been tested and said you are not sick, and someone who has been tested and who has been said you are sick, despite the fact it wasn't true. So just because of those 2 specific cases, my cousin lost his trust against COVID testing. Okay, that's sad. Clearly, that's sad. And I'll try to understand, how is it? So there is 2 terms you should know about testing. We are not talking about test efficiency, really. In the media, in the news, there is a talk about test efficiency. But what we should talk about is test sensibility and test specificity. And those terms are very important, and you will see we can transpose those terms on testing, software testing, what we do. So how do we calculate sensibility and specificity? Sensibility is you have to get all the detected affected case, so all the case which were into the big blue circle just before, and divided by the real case which are affected. If you can detect everyone which are sick, your sensibility is 100%. The specificity is exactly the contrary. You will have to count the number of healthy people you have detected, declared healthy, and divided by the number of real healthy people. So if I go back to the previous slide, the sensibility is the number of red circle, which is inside the big one, blue, divided by all the red one. And the specificity is the number of the blue, small blue circle outside the big one, divided by all the small one. So here is two characteristics of it. What happens when one or one other has a lack of, is too low? So if we have a look on the poor test efficiency consequences, if we have a poor specificity, we might say to people, you are sick and you need to isolate yourself, despite the fact some of them are not really sick and are not contagious. We might let contagious people going outside and spread the disease everywhere if we have a poor sensibility. So what do we want? If we are doing COVID testing, the fact is we have no treatment today, and the best thing we could do is to say people who are sick, please stay at home and don't spread the disease everywhere. So if we are saying this to too many people, including people which are not sick, that's okay. But because basically this is the aim of all tests. We want to protect people. If we are taking apart some people which are not risky or not spreading the disease, but anyway, that's a cost to pay, because the fact is we will include more people which are actually sick to stay apart for a while. So that's okay. So we do agree with that and say, as a nation, as a society, we want high sensibility for COVID testing. That's okay. What do we want when we are doing software testing? So when I'm testing my app, my application, if I have poor specificity, what will happen? I will have a lot of false positive report. So basically, I would say there is a bug somewhere or something not working as expected, but it is not true. It is not because of the application I'm testing. It is because of my test. It is because of anything else, but not because of the application. And if we have a poor sensibility, what will happen? We will let bugs go into production. So because we won't detect it anyway. And usually you will see that specificity and sensibility is quite linked. So if you want to raise the level of specificity, sometimes you will have a decrease of sensibility and vice versa. So when I'm doing my test, what do I want? So in fact, it really depends. When I'm doing testing manually, I have something which is very powerful, which is my brain. As Erika said, if you are still there, Erika, hi, very good job. As Erika said, I'm a human, so I do have the best tool on earth, which is my brain. So if I have a lot of things popping in my eyes saying when I'm doing a test, this is not exactly as expected, my brain is able to identify, analyze, and say that is correct. And I go through. I go further. Let me give you an example. If in my test script it is said I need to see submit on a form, and in fact I don't have submit but accept, I would say this is not as expected. I could take minutes to say, is it normal not to have submit but accept? Someone would say, yes, we changed it. Sorry, we haven't changed it in the test script. Okay, that's done. I go further. That's okay. My brain is able to analyze, take a decision, question some people, and then decide. That's okay. So a poor specificity can be compensated by my brain. A poor sensibility is something we don't want when doing testing usually, because what I want is to find bugs. What will we do when we are doing manual testing? We try to target our test at the place where we are more likely to find bugs. This is how we compensate this problem with the way we do test. So basically, when I'm doing manual testing, it's okay for me to have a high sensibility with a kind of poor specificity, because my brain will do the analysis and then I will raise a bug on the system or whatever, Jira you have, Mantis or whatever, as only when I'm sure there's something to report. What will happen when I do automated testing? So automated testing is a very good tool, but not as good as your brain. An automated script is basically stupid. So if anything you have in your script is not working well, it will fail. What will happen if you do so? If it fails, you will have a lot of failure in your report, and it will go against the goal of what you want to do with automated test. What you want with automated test is to get feedback in a fast and reliable way. If you have a small, very poor specificity of your test, meaning you will raise fails when you don't need to, you don't have the reliability on your test. You will not be able to trust the results. And it will cost you a lot of manual, let's say human time to analyze results and to do the filtering. But it is exactly not what you want to do when you want to do automated test. So basically, there is a very, very big difference on what we can accept when we are doing manual testing compared to what we can accept when we are doing automated testing. We want, when we are doing automated testing, a very, very high specificity. So as I said before, when you are doing this, sometimes you are losing, kind of sensibility. So it means if you only focus on very specific tests which are very specific, it means it will raise error only when there is something not working well in the application. So you might lose a kind of sensibility. It means you can lose or let some bugs go to production. Let me tell you something. If you are a tester, you already know testing everything is not possible. Being sure there is no bug going to production is a dream. It never happens. So it's kind of concession we have to do. And yes, when we understand the goal of automated testing, we have to accept this. So these two characteristics are very important, and it's true for medical testing and for software testing, but you have to understand the goal of why are you testing is very important. Let me tell you something. Why do we have poor specificity of our test automation? So it's basically what you heard about flaky test flakiness. And it is true when you are getting test automation in your organization that you will have to struggle with test flakiness. If you don't, it's probably because you are very good, but very damn good, or because you did not understand that your test is not testing the right thing at all. So test flakiness comes from many, many reasons. You can get on the internet or things like this, a lot of list of things you have to think of when you don't want to have flakiness on your test automation. I'll give you my point of view and give you a quick insight of a suggestion, a strategy to have less flakiness on your test automation. From my experience, the biggest 3 reasons why your test is not giving you the right result it is because it is sharing the same test environment. That's the one which is used by many other guys, many other applications, and your test might depend on other tests. So when you are building test automation and you have a test to be run after another one because the first one did prepare data or state of the application, it will leads you to have flaky test. And the third is your test relies on unpredictable data and basically test data. All of these are usually quite linked. The first and the third are really heavily linked. Let me tell you something. If you are doing test automation on a shared test environment, you will try to find the test data which fits your needs when you need to run your test. So many scenarios, some people are trying to build the data just before the test or as part of the test, and it takes sometimes, and usually it fails. So your test is failing because it fails before doing the test steps. It fails when you are building the data. Some people try to get the data into the test environment, which is usually a big end-to-end environment with data spread across different applications. So they get the appropriate data, they put it in a CSV or JSON file, then they put this in their test project, and when they run their test, they expect the data to be exactly the same when they found it, which almost never happen. If you have a look on your organization, how it works, let's say I'm working in a bank and we have obviously end-to-end test environment, but we have batch running every night, even in test environments. So it means if all the personal account of the user I'm using to do my test, we just took some money to simulate the fact that he's paying his mortgage, the day after, the amount of money, the balance of his account would not be the same. And probably I needed him to have some money to do the test I need. So what will happen? When I will run my test, I will take this data and my test will fail, not because the fact we cannot do a bill payment or whatever. It's just because the test data was unpredictable. The amount of cash on his bank account was too low to do the test. And we might have a lot of tests failing because of that. There's many reasons also why your automated test could be flaky. I invite you to have a look on every advice you can find on internet. Get an appropriate framework, do a smaller test as you can, things like this. There is very good insight you can find everywhere. But I give you something we do to be able to test our application and have less flaky tests. We are using sometimes, not every time because it's not easy to do it, but what we call dynamic testing environment. The idea is to isolate your application and make it independent from every backend you might have, every other application your application under test is calling, and then to control the application, the data of the application, and obviously the data which is outside the application. To do that, you obviously will need an orchestrator, usually something like Jenkins. You will need to be able to create your test environment infrastructure from scratch. So in our case, we are using infrastructure as code, and you can do it in the cloud. We do it in the cloud, in public cloud, but you can do it. You can build this on, let's say, a blank machine and erase it each time, but it's the same kind of, it's the same way of thinking. You will need to be able to control the database of the application of the test. So to set up a database with the exact data you need at the moment you will run your test. And for any other services which are not part of your application under test, you stub it. You replace it with mocks. And then, and only then, you will be able to do your automated test suite. So let's have a look on what it looks like. If you have an application, here we have the application A, and it is calling the application C, the one which is application D, blah, 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 etc. Let's say we want to test application A. usually when I was doing manual testing, I would go through the application B first, because this is the only human interface I have to test it. And I won't use, any kind of REST testing suite or SOAP testing suite to test my application A. Doing automated tests, we are testing directly application A because we are responsible of evaluating the quality of application A, not the full system. So I will only take the application A, then I will provide from the cloud, but could be done everywhere else. I will deploy my application A on, let's say, a blank brand new server. I will put a database aside with exact data I need to do my test. I will replace any external services with a stubing system. So when application A will call the external service, for instance, it wants to call the ID of client 123, it will answer Valentin, he's a client 123, and here's balance and things like this. So what I have to do is to put in my stub the exact data I need for my test script. No less, no more. Just exact data I need for my test script. More of that, I give access to my testers, and he's able to modify the mocks, the stubbing service. So if he needs to create another test, a new one, he just have to add the data he needs. So as soon as he will run his test, he will find in the backend, in fact, it's a replaced backend, he will find exactly the data he needs. So he gets a control on the data and at the exact moment when he needs to do his test. And then, and only then, I'm able to run my test on my isolated environment and application. So this is an advice I can give you if you want to get less flaky tests. Isolate it. If you isolate your test environments, your application under test, you will be able to better run automated tests on it. Obviously, if you do that for doing manual testing, you might have quite some problems. It's a bit big to do, just to do, I say, manual testing. But when you are doing automated tests, because there is no brain to analyze live the result of your test, as you are doing when you are doing manual testing, you need to have your test environment, your application, and the data in your test environment and application very consistent. And this gives you the power to get this. The idea is to do everything as code. So what we do everything as code. I mean, it is working in an orchestrator. So Jenkins is running this for us. We are providing the application infrastructure as code into a public cloud. We are creating the database from nothing and providing into this database every data we need for testing with scripts. We are using a stubbing service which is built by script, and everything is scripted and as code. And obviously at the end, our test is running, which are automated tests, are script. So the idea is to automate every of this. It will take you time to achieve this, but trust me, it just drop or fail for bad reason. We had a lot of automated tests failing because of bad data or because the environment was not up and running, because any backend at the end, was not up at the time when we wanted to run our automated test. This can solve you a lot of problems. I go back to why is your test flaky? Shared environment and unpredictable data, those two, we can solve it with what I just presented you. There's many other reasons why your automated test could be flaky, and I urge you to have a look on this and fix this, because basically, if your automated tests are reporting bad results, you won't be able to get from all the development team exactly what you need. And what you need is to give them a fast feedback fast feedback on the product. Each time they do a modification, you want your automated test to run automatically and report directly the result to them. This is what we call continuous testing, and this is what we try to achieve. If you want to achieve continuous testing, it really means anytime a developer is committing a bunch of code in the source code repository, you need to be able to run the script, run the full pipeline, which will do continuous integration, continuous deployment on test environment, continuous testing, which means running your test scripts right away and give the feedback right away to the developer. You don't want this to go through whatever analysis which has to be done by whatever QA guys. It will stop the pace of your feedback. And because you want to give this feedback as soon as you have run your automated test, basically as soon as your automated test has been run automatically by the pipeline, you don't want the result to be wrong. You want the test to say when it's not working because of the app, and not to say it is not working because of whatever environment problem, whatever data problem or something like this. If you have test flakiness in a continuous testing way of doing, you will lose the confidence of your team into your automated test. And trust me, this is absolutely not what you want to have, because what will happen? Exactly the same as my cousin did. When I asked him, did you get tested for COVID? He told me, oh, no, because I don't trust the results. You don't want your developers to say, oh, the tests are failing, but I want to have a look on this because these things are always failing. You know how it is. These things are always failing for bad reason. So they are saying wrong things. So I don't have a look on this. You don't want this to happen. You really want your test, your teams, your automated test to be trusted. So this is why I think it is really important to understand that when we are doing automated tests, we need to have a very high specificity. It is a matter of trust. You need to trust your automated test. Thank you. And I have no time for sometimes for question now. So the question are, I guess, in the Q&A section. Yes. So I have a question for Krishna Vinavanka. So I try to pronounce your name as good as I can. Sorry if I failed. Try to pronounce mine and we will be even. So how are you executing 1,600 tests? What is your CI/CD build job execution time? So what I'm saying, I now have a question in French. Thank you, Kim. So it's not 1,000, it's 160,000 test execution we have a month. So we are an organization where IT is something like 2,500 plus developers and so there is 2,500 people in IT. So we have, as a bank, we have many applications. So it's really more than it's 100 times what you understood, what we do as tests. So obviously it's not for just one application. Okay, we have today in this count, I have something like 35 applications doing heavy test automation. So obviously we do not run this from our laptop at all. Guys are doing the test script from, yes, their laptop, but they commit this into a Git repository. And we do have Jenkins pipeline running tests on those applications. So we are using, yes, Jenkins to do that. And about execution time, this is something very important behind execution time. We try, which is not something we can have for any application, but our goal is to have something like 10 minutes between the beginning of the test script and the end of the test script. So what we do is test concurrency. We are able to run many tests in parallel. It is very important if you want your test suite to run in a timely fashion. Okay, so what we say usually is your test should not last more. Each individual automated test should not last more than 2 minutes. So if it is more than 2 minutes, it's probably too big. And we want to be able to run the whole test suite in less than 10. Basically, we want to do better. We want to get the first feedback to the developer. So from the commit of the code to the first feedback from the test in less than 10 minutes. It's not exactly what we have today, but this is all guidelines. What we see is we have some project we are able to have this in something like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, it depends. And some others have, a more long test suite and they have 35, 40 minutes. Something I have to say is really think about test concurrency. If your tests are completely independent, so no tests are depending on each other, you can run it independently. Think about your test data, because we had some project who had a problem running tests concurrently because they haven't enough test data to do it. Build your test data to have it, because you need test concurrency. And we have seen some project going from more than 6 hours of automated test running just sequentially to less than 20 minutes in parallel. So think about it. Another question I have is, what is the time of my team? So as I said, it's more than 2,000 people in IT. So let's say there is something like 10% of testers in all of these. We have PM, we have PO, we have a lot of people in that, including developers and things like this. So it's something like 10% of testers inside a big group of 2,500 IT guys. Another question for Kim: are these 2 minutes UI or API? 2 minutes is for UI. For API, you should not have a test running more than some few seconds. Okay, and when you are running a test on the API, let's say a REST API, normally it's a call and that's done. Okay, your test is finished. So you might have a lot of tests in your test suite, but one test is usually very, very small. You can have sometimes 2 or 3 calls because you need to do first an authentication on whatever API and get a token, and with this token get some data and then do your test. But anyway, it won't last more than 2 to 6 seconds maximum. Another question from Kim is, are we doing Java Selenium? Yes, we do have a framework, and the framework we have built specifically for our group for the bank is a Java-based framework, Java JUnit-based framework. And yes, for doing UI, we are using Selenium into that framework. For doing API testing, REST API, we are using REST Assured. But we also have modules in this framework to do tests on database, on files, and things like this, because as a bank, we are manipulating big database, sometimes files and things like this. So yes, it's based on Java Selenium. Our choice to Java Selenium was very simple. If we had a look on our group, we had mainly Java developers and Java application. So if we want all testers to be helped by all the developers to do test automation, it was better to have the same language. So we choose Java for that. And Selenium, there is no question on this. It's obviously Selenium to do web testing, nothing else.